So just to give you a little bit of background, some of you were at this meeting the last time, and some of you are joining new. You're part of the I'm for the Arts working group, and you're coming in from that direction, or some of you are ASSITEJ members who weren't able to join last time and are joining us this time. So everybody is very, very welcome. Basically, what we are talking about today is really around this question of what can the arts and artists do for education, and particularly at this moment in the time of COVID, or even the sort of post-COVID as we go through the various stages of dealing with the pandemic. What is it that we can do specifically for schools? And just to give you as brief a summary as possible, in our last meeting, what we were discussing was, first of all, what people were already doing. So there was a sharing of how people are working with schools or for schools. And then we were talking about how, in this period, the arts landscape has changed, the educational landscape has changed, that we've got children and young people who are overwhelmed by these changes. Some of them are receiving no education at the moment. Some are receiving some form of distance education, whether it is by means of workbooks that they're picking up from a school, or online classrooms, or they are going to school, and maybe that's been very consistent. In very few cases, I think. Maybe it's been very sporadic and interrupted and stressful. And that teachers also have been needing psychosocial support because of the stress of this period, that parents too are dealing with a lot in terms of having to homeschool, as well as, deal with their children's anxieties about going to school. So we were talking about all of these challenges that are currently in the space. And we raised the fact that ASSITEJ is a national network of artists who are working in the space of theatre for children and young people, and we already run a program. I'm just going to mute some people as they come in. But hello to you all. I'm not muting you because we don't want you to say anything. It's just easier if we have one voice at a time. So I'm just giving a little bit of an input, a bit of background for those people who weren't at the last meeting. So just to think about how we as a network of artists, of organizations that are working in this space between the arts and education can really support education at this time. And we spoke about some of the needs that we have, that there's a need for advocacy to push back at the fact that the arts are non-essential, that there's a need to overcome the challenge of data and devices, that there's a need for new ways of teaching the arts or engaging with arts practices because of physical distancing and the requirements of a kind of COVID protocol, if you like. And that there are some needs that maybe go into even longer term strategies around artists needing to be upskilled in new methodologies or new content. And, how can we do this in some way together? How can we assist one another to do this? How can we see what other people are doing, have it be more visible so that we can all support one another, so that we can replicate what's really working in one part of the country in another part of the country, and essentially ensure that children and young people at this time have the best possible support that they could have. Coming out of that, there have been some projects that have emerged, and I see that Gerard is here from the Outreach Foundation, and it'd be great to hear from you, Gerard, around our Happy Space and what's happened there, which was really speaking to the psychosocial needs. And I'd hope that Tamara, who unfortunately can't be with us today, but was at the last meeting, would also speak today about some of the practicalities of working in this kind of COVID environment and some of the adaptations that she's had to make. but perhaps there's someone else in the room who'd like to speak to that, someone who's been working practically with children and has maybe come up with some things and can give us some input. And then we'd also like to share where we are at with our Theatre for Youth program, and how we see the Theatre for Youth program as being a resource that anyone who's an ASSITEJ member can make use of to access a network of schools and artists, and to potentially market or draw attention to the work that they're doing, whether it's online or physical, to schools, or potential spaces where the work could be used through this mechanism. So I wanted to really take a moment to share that as well. In the last meeting, we also spoke about the content that needed to be generated, and it'd be lovely to have a little bit of an update around that. The fact that we don't just need to generate content, we also need to think about how we can mediate that content and what ways we can go about doing that. And we also have been looking for sources of funding. We did apply for this project to the National Arts Council. Unfortunately, we weren't successful, but I do know that there were many people who were successful with the National Arts Council funding, and perhaps if you're one of those lucky people and your project has anything to do with education, you could also let us know, because I think it's really useful for us to be able to share knowledge of what's out there and what is working and being funded, so that we can make sure that it has the strongest impact possible, and also that we can try and strategize around the gaps that might exist, or the ways that we might engage. So I see that Justine and Mpumi have their hands up, and I know Justine is to leave shortly. So Justine, maybe you would like to say a few things before, or ask a question or whatever it is now, before we get into the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Yvette. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to mention to everybody here, in terms of resources that are available during this time, Mbali Visual Literacy Project, which is the organization that I run, has over the last year been involved with setting up a digital platform, a website linked with a Facebook group around the set of 8 art books. It's mostly for teaching visual arts, but we basically put the entire set of books online in a website that I think is quite easy to use, and lots of exciting content. As I say, mostly for visual arts teachers, but I think there's also scope for other disciplines to draw from it. And the website, we're actually going to, the official launch is going to be next month, but it is live. So if anyone wants to look at it, or just sort of go there for an initial visit, it's Mbali Art Books, that's IMBALI artbooks.org.za. And I don't know, I know some of you have already seen the physical books, and the website is a sort of a complement. The physical books and the website kind of complement each other and work together. And we were very aware that not everyone would get access to the physical set. So, and especially in these times when everyone needs to get ideas and content, it's a really, I just wanted to share that with the group.
Thank you so much, Justine. I'm sharing the actual website itself with everybody. It's
thank you.
The things in the chat, and then the website is on the screen. And I mean, I can't recommend this highly enough. It is so beautiful. These books are absolutely magnificent. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were kind of designed for senior phase visual art. But yeah, obviously, because of the way they've been designed around these themes, rather than around the caps in a very sort of overt way. I mean, they do link to the caps, obviously, very strongly, but they are designed around themes, you can actually, you know, take them up to matric or take them down to intermediate phase. So for our Kickstarter facilitators, and there are some in this group, I see BC and Pumi and various people who are working with the intermediate phase visual arts and performing arts. I mean, these are just such a fantastic resource.
Great. Thanks. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks so much, Justine. And yes, I think there are lots of potential connections for the other art forms as well. And, you know, perhaps what we should also be thinking about is how do we get this information out to teachers? And certainly, I mean, I'm sure you're getting it out to the teachers that you've done your workshops with, but we've got all our Kickstarter teachers who we connected to. We've also got our what's it called, after school game changer people who might be interested in sharing it with the schools that they were working with. So maybe we could do, if there's a little bit of a mailer that you could send us, like just something very brief, or even, you know, what would be even better is like a WhatsApp poster, like a little, you know, PDF that can be on WhatsApp. Because we could then share that in the WhatsApp groups that we've got with teachers and with artists who have links to teachers.
Okay, no, fantastic. And we're working with Art Africa and Creative Feel magazine over the next month to actually launch the website in a hopefully a very comprehensive way. So keep an eye also on social media, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all these things, because between Art Africa and Creative Field magazine, we're hoping that we'll get, you know, reach beyond just our networks and circles. But I will also send a WhatsApp out. Sorry, I'm busy here. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks very much. While we're on websites, maybe we can just show you the Theatre for Youth website. So Theatre for Youth is it's a program of ASSITEJ South Africa. It's really, in a way, it's a kind of central program. It's a shorthand for saying, how do we connect theatre and performing arts to children and young people in schools, creches, community spaces, etc. And as you can see from just this, from the list here, we've got schools, theatres, productions, areas, resources. So the way it works is that what you're seeing now is the front end. And you can sign up here as a theatre company or a school. If you've got a production or a workshop or something that you want to offer to schools, you would come here. But if you're on the back end, in other words, if you are now a theatre who's signed up, you're able to then have a look at the schools that are members of Theatre for Youth. You're able to contact them directly. You're able to see them on a Google map. You're able to basically map out your tours. So the whole thing was designed very much around physical touring. It was about trying to create an admin space where theatre companies could link to schools more easily. They could find out where schools were, what they wanted, what kinds of productions they were looking for, and the schools themselves could search according to, for example, if we go to productions for a moment, you can search according to different features. Yes, it's taking a moment. So you can look for a theme, or you can look for a link to the curriculum, or you can look for an age group, you can look for where it is based. So here, for example, here are some of the filters. Show productions near the city of, with the theme of, with the school subject of, for these grades or those grades, in this language or that language. And then you can see below here the productions that are showing. And obviously, if you put anything into these filters, then you will immediately reduce the number of productions that are showing until eventually you get the one that might be suitable for you. But one of the things that we've decided to do with this is obviously we don't have very many theatre productions that are touring to schools at the moment, but we do have theatre productions that are available online. And so we are updating the site so that people can now add, so if here's a theatre company, are you willing to tour, or do you have online content? So in other words, schools could potentially be accessing your filmed productions this way. In other words, alerting you to the fact that they would like to use them. And it's something which seems to be becoming more and more popular. We've just had a couple of different requests from schools for their cultural festivals, which are now virtual festivals, and they're looking for content of productions. They're also looking for content of artists. So artists who will offer workshops and different things. So one of the things that here you can see the map. So, you know, these are theatre companies where they're based. You can see 32 in Durban, 30 in Cape Town, etc. 54 in Gauteng. So what you can do is you can also put yourself here as an individual. So Caroline Palmer, just as an example, could be offering a workshop, which is an online workshop. And she could put that into the website and offer it to schools, and schools could then contact her through the website. So it's really a kind of a one-stop shop, or that's what it's trying to be, a one-stop shop of who's available, who's doing what. What we've been working on more recently is also updating the resources. So you'll see here are some advocacy documents for arts education, websites where you can find things to do with arts education and the arts, online learning materials, different forms of learning materials, ebooks, places you can find books, parental resources, things for parents, offline learning materials, things that you can download and use at home, online African storytelling sessions. Of course, this links into our 2 projects that we've been doing around storytelling. The one is with Play Africa, the African stories that happen every Tuesday afternoon, and the other one is the virtual National Arts Festival where we had daily storytelling. So now all our stories are archived on this website as well. And then audio, we've got a few audio samples here, and this is something which we can start to develop, and then articles about theatre or arts education or whatever. So what we're looking to do is to really expand these resources. And if you've got things that you'd like to offer, you know, and you'd like it to all be in one place, you're very welcome to let us know. And I mean, really, this is it's one of the membership perks. So if you're an ASSITEJ South Africa member, then you're able to you know, access the Theatre for Youth website and upload any of your materials. And so I think that this is something which we can talk about some more, is how do we start to populate this with some online material that might be really useful for schools. Oh, I'm seeing I've kept a whole lot of people waiting in the waiting room. So Mpumi, your hand is still up. Do you mean it to be up? Would you like to say something? Mpumi? No? Should I put your hand down for you? Okay. So welcome to those people who've just come in. Thanks for joining us. I was just giving everybody a little bit of an update on the last meeting, which I won't repeat now. But really, this is an opportunity to just see where we are at in our thinking. We've just been sharing some online resources, the online resource that ASSITEJ has, which I'll just go back to for a moment because there are some people who maybe this would be interesting for. So we're talking about Theatre for Youth, which is a website which allows theatres to promote their productions or their workshops to schools, and for artists to contact schools and access schools directly. It has a space for resources that can be found online, but it also has a very nice sort of search engine function which you can use to search for productions. And we're looking at how we can make this sort of have more of a strong online content at this time, given the COVID context. But what I'd like to do now is just to maybe invite Gerard, if you'd like to share with us a little bit about the development of what's happened with our Happy Space. just to tell us a bit about where that project is at. That's something which will also find a home, I believe, on our Theatre for Youth platform. And we're in the process of trying to get that all sorted out. But it'd be great to hear, particularly for those people who don't know anything about it at all, if you could just give us a little bit of an overview, Gerard.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm the person to really talk about our happy place. I've been on the periphery of it. We ran a project, an online project in May and June in collaboration with the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, with 6 high schools, Soweto and inner city, with 5 facilitators working with about 60 high school youth. And it was really about getting some of the youth that were supposed to be part of our high school program to engage creatively over this time and to kind of mark what this time meant for them. And all of that work is now archived in a blog. And I have shared all the material that was created with Alison, and I'm very happy for that to go onto the Theatre for Youth website as a resource if people would like to engage the material and use it still. We have been invited to be part of a new initiative called 21 Acts of Goodness, which is a project that's been sort of driven by the Old Mutual Foundation, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and Love Life. And a woman, Kai Crooks Chisano, is project leader on this. And again, I sent Alison information, and Kai and Alison are working together. But it seems like this project is a way for us to somehow support the matric class of 2020. And there's going to be a Zoom session on Friday. It's a national project, and it's hoping to create both a movement, but also to engage with organizations that are working with high school learners to try and come up with some kind of act of goodness, a way to support the matric class of 2020 in whatever way. I did say to Kai that what is very important is to have that letter that we could give to principals of schools to say that the Department of Education is endorsing this project, supporting it, and gives permission for us to go into schools and offer a workshop or an after-school program where we have spaces where matrics could have access to the internet, or homework support or curriculum support. And we're hoping, and as part of our offering, our facilitators will receive training through our happy place around well-being, trauma, the anxiety that learners are possibly experiencing at this time, and how we can engage that in a way that's both safe and effective.
Thank you. Maybe Ali, would you be able to speak to our happy place a little bit more? And maybe just while we make that connection, let me also share this so people know we're kind of talking about. So our happy place is currently a person on Facebook, and you can find it here as our happy place, and it works at Bit Strong for Life. And yeah, I don't know, Ali, do you want to take over and just talk a little bit about what's been being done?
Yeah, sure. So our happy place comes from Drama for Life, which is an applied drama theatre department at Wits University. And it's a couple of people who've come together, a drama therapist and a postdoc student and a few other organizations are now getting involved. And the idea is that it is spreading awareness about trauma and how trauma can affect and what one can do to try and overcome either your own trauma or the trauma that learners are experiencing. And as we know, COVID-19 is a very stressful time. And the idea is that if we can be aware of a lot of these things, then we can equip ourselves to deal with it. So the Facebook is a person, like an entity. So if you wanted to view all this material, you would need to become friends with Our Happy Place on Facebook. And what happens on Facebook is that there are a number of memes which are posted. Yvette's been showing some of them, which are really challenges. So there's the idea that there is some information about what trauma or pain or stress can do. And then there is some information about how to overcome that, and then often a challenge. And the idea is that people can read those and respond to those. And on the Facebook feed, you can see that there have been some people sharing their challenges or their responses. So perhaps a dance or some movement or someone reciting a poem that has helped them. And the idea is that there is a community that is kind of generated on Facebook through the Facebook profile. But also what's starting to happen, as Gerard mentioned, that there is training. So Valma de Beer and Manola are now offering trainings based around the happy place, but using all those tools and all that information. I know that one of our facilitators, Mpumi, who I think's here, was trained recently and really found it very helpful and very interesting. And that it's basically using the arts as a means to heal and to find ways that the arts can be used to help people, even if it's as simple as a breathing exercise or a movement exercise. And the next training will be happening on the 8th of August. So over the long weekend, I think it's a Saturday, the 8th. And I have asked the Happy Place how people can, if they should get in touch with them about the training. And I'm just waiting for some information about that. But if I get it during the meeting, I'll put that information into the chat so people know how they can contact the Happy Place to do some of that training.
Great. And Mpumi, do you want to maybe just say a few words about the training that you experienced, just to give people an idea of what it is? You'll just need to unmute yourself.
Oh, yes. I hope the sound is good.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
The Happy Place workshop was such a great workshop for me. I'd been dealing with at that time because we had it just at the time when I was going through something. So it first began with games, which are very helpful for the mind and to also help you in terms of relaxing the body. I'm a person who deals with panic attacks. So it was really, really, really helpful. And I believe that it's also going to be so helpful for the kids if we do it for our kids in townships and in the schools and so on. So yeah, it was great. It was a great workshop for me.
Thanks so much, Mpumi. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, and then just because you also were talking about the 21 acts of goodness, I'm just thinking that maybe, Ali, what we can do is send around the information that we got about 21 acts of goodness. Do you want to add anything to what Gerard's already told us about that?
No, I think it was quite well covered. I must just check if Kai is wanting to make it open. I'm not sure. Gerard, do you know if they're looking for more NPOs to be involved?
I'm not sure. I know that there's this kind of approaching organizations, but also trying to create a movement where both celebrities, organizations, artists, will become part of a movement to support the class of 2020. So it is, and I'm not sure if they resolved that, where the support is and where we just want to create this groundswell of support. So yeah, I also can't really answer to that. And I'm not sure who's been invited to the Friday session. I haven't heard from Kai for a few days now.
Okay, well, perhaps what we can do is, oh, Glenn's saying he can't hear. Glenn, are you hearing me now? Is everybody else hearing me? Just checking.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right. So we'll check with Kai then and see what the situation is there. But I think it is certainly a, you know, I think it's a very good project, which I think is something that if there is the space for people to become involved in it, you know, it's one way of supporting matrics at this time. So one of the thoughts that we also had was that obviously we've got a lot of artists who are currently essentially unemployed or unengaged, or, you know, because of the current context. And yet we've got matrics who are in a, you know, in a situation where the education department is insisting that they finish the academic year and that they finish their courses, and that they need to do dramatic arts as a final matric subject. And we're looking at how we could potentially support those matrics. You know, we also know that teachers, the dramatic arts teachers, are often completely overwhelmed. They're trying to coach people sometimes on Zoom or sometimes on other kinds of platforms, sometimes on WhatsApp, sometimes in person. The actual content of the dramatic arts exams has had to change so that scenes are no longer, you know, part of what they need to rehearse, and they can do more sort of individual projects, etc. So it also means a lot of one-on-one coaching. And part of what we'd put in, you know, as an application to the NAC was for a project which would have supported matrics. We didn't, as I said, originally, we didn't unfortunately get that funding, but, you know, we are still keen to explore this. And we are also thinking about, can we find a way to get some of this paid for by parents who can afford it, and then to try and use that to cross-subsidize other people who can't afford it, to ensure that the artist gets paid something, obviously, for the coaching, but also that that kids who would otherwise not have access to support at this time, and who might be really feeling very stressed by that, would have artists who could help them with their practical projects. So I don't know whether there are any thoughts on that, any responses to that, any interest in being part of that, but that is something which we'd like to open up, and it's also something which could potentially be marketed through Theatre for Youth. So, in other words, artists who are wanting to offer their services to give either workshops specifically in the dramatic arts curriculum, or one-on-one coaching, or even small group coaching, either online or in person, would be able to do it through the Theatre for Youth website. And facilitated basically through all the financial, other administrative kind of support to the project. Anybody who'd like to respond to that one? Or ask questions about it?
Hello, I'm sorry, I don't see where I can raise up my hand. Can I speak?
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank you. I think it's an exciting project, especially when it responds to supporting the metric of 2020. I'd just like to find out how the department and getting involved is responding to the potential of digital space being a medium that further divides the learners. Number two, is it something that maybe has two prongs? So there could be those who are just volunteering, and could there be others who get to be remunerated for their services as artists?
Yeah. So I think, yes, let's talk about both of those things. I mean, one, obviously we're in a new world in a sense in terms of offering digital content. And I've got a lot of questions about what kind of financial models we use. And on the one hand, I would like to be able to see people volunteering where they are able to do so, but I also don't want artists to be taken advantage of, particularly when many artists are really in a crisis situation at the moment and don't have the finances to be able to support themselves and their families. So we've got to be careful about balancing these things, and I think finding some kind of a model that allows for both without compromising one or the other is useful. So that's what, if anyone's got any thoughts on that, I'd really love to hear them. We're also trying to work out the kind of pricing that we can use for example, online production. So if a school is wanting to do a cultural festival and they would like to have your online production on at the festival, what should we be charging for it? There are different models at the moment. We've all seen the virtual NAF, and there's South African Theatre on Demand. So there's a kind of a pay-per-view model. Is that the same kind of model that we should be using with schools? Or should there be a kind of a standard rate? So, I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on the financial models around virtual content. The second thing, or rather your first point, Lalu, around the department. Look, the department, I think, is very aware of these things. I think, frankly, that they are so overwhelmed that they don't know. It's difficult for them to deal with all the many demands that are coming at them from all sides. They are speaking about blended learning all the time. They are acknowledging the need for online learning. They understand the limitations of it. The recent reports that have come out from the researchers on how South African children are doing in terms of online learning is that the majority of those who are engaged with online learning are not, in fact, doing very well. I mean, they're not engaging as often as people thought they were, and they're not getting through as much, and it's very, very fraught. So the online space is certainly not ideal. And there are other ways that one can provide content which are more cost effective. So if we're talking about coaching, I mean, I think that the WhatsApp format, which Magnet Theatre has used and the Market Theatre Lab has used, while it still requires data, and it still requires you to be able to upload videos of yourself performing, etc., it does appear to be a cheaper model than, for example, the Zoom classroom or the Google Classroom. And of course, all of this is, we need to be pressurizing for zero-rated sites, and Theatre for Youth we've put it forward for zero rating, and we're hoping that we will get that. But having said that, what I've discovered about the zero rating is that the moment you're talking about a lot of video content on the site, it's less likely to be zero rated, because that's precisely what the various providers don't want to be paying for. So there are some challenges there, and it's not really possible to do, as much as we think of radio as an accessible medium, it's not really possible to do coaching as one needs to have for, say, dramatic arts final practicals via radio, So yeah, there are concerns and limitations, but I think this is where we need to be inventive, and we need to be thinking about what we can use, what might be in some way productive, and where schools are going back. And I mean, mostly the matrics are back at school at the moment, to some extent or another. Is there some way that we can engage with the artists who are in those communities to do some physically distanced coaching of those learners actually in their spaces? That's also another possibility. So just looking at the comments here, Peter's keen to be involved, and Lali's keen to be involved personally and through Rhodes University Drama Department. And Francis says, I'd like to refer someone to this, a fellow artist skilled in dramatic arts and facilitation. Great, yeah, please. We want all the referrals we can get. So any thoughts on this particular question of supporting matrics with, I mean, you know, ASSITEJ is primarily a theatre organisation, so we're starting with dramatic arts, but it's not to say the other art subjects don't also need support. They do, and maybe visual arts actually, you know, has other kinds of strategies that we could use, for example. But just thinking dramatic arts for the moment, any thoughts on this? And anybody who would like to be involved in this project or would like to be involved in the thinking of it? Peter?
Yvette?
Yes.
Can I jump in?
Hi.
Thank you for the invite, and thanks for being able to be able to join. I'm sorry I couldn't join you last time. We as a company, Creative Madness is a company, we're Durban-based, and we are currently the implementation partners for the MRP Foundation. We work throughout the country, but for the creative arts at the moment, we're currently working with 20 schools in Kwakwa. I have 2 full-time staff members who basically are free in the afternoons. So we are being financially supported by the MRP Foundation, and therefore we could do this as a volunteer thing, which would then top up our time. So how do we go about this? Should we join onto your onto the Theatre for Youth website? Do you want to do it through that, or do you?
I think absolutely. We do want to do it through that, but we are. But also, you know, let's have a think about exactly how it would work, and where are they physically based? Are they in Durban or?
They are. They're both in KZN. Yes.
Right. Right.
So we could support local learners, certainly.
Yeah, wonderful. That's really exciting.
What I'm wondering is whether or not there are other organizations that are doing creative arts work. Obviously, I'm quite new to this sector. I used to be a performer and I don't do that anymore. So I'm quite new to this. And so it's linking in with other organizations that are being financially supported to be able to do this work voluntarily. Obviously, but again, not to the detriment of artists who desperately need the work.
Yeah. So,
yeah, so it's a balance.
Part of where this came from was that ASSITEJ does run an education project called Kickstarter, which is in schools in KZN, Free State and Northern Cape, and which is working in primary schools. But the artists who are working in those schools often do have, you know, they have the skills to facilitate in high schools, and similarly,
Yes.
They aren't being fully utilized at this time, although they are on a kind of monthly stipend. So, you know, we're also looking at ways that we can ensure that our artists are fully utilized in terms of the hours that they should be giving to the project, but perhaps an alternative mechanism. So there would be a pool of people there that we could potentially, not everybody, but some of them would be able to do this kind of work. And then, of course, you know, as Lalu has said, there may well be people like yourself or other people who are sitting at a university who might be interested in volunteering. And so then the idea would be to gather all of these people and to put them into a kind of a, you know, Theatre for Youth, dramatic arts core group, where we'd be able to locate them on the map. We'd be able to see, okay, these are the ones who are able to travel to these schools, or these are able to do at least, you know, for example, if the tuition needs to be in isiZulu, they can do it in isiZulu, or, you know, whatever the language constraints are, if they're doing it online, you know. So it'd be great to be able to kind of map that and see who we can put into that pool. And then at the same time, I think we need to give it a value. So we need to know that if someone is volunteering their time, actually what they are volunteering is equal to X. And for those people who can't volunteer their time, they need to be paid X, which we need to find somehow, somewhere at this point, you know. And that would be, something I think which would be very, very useful.
Well, so my specialist field is symbolic theatre. So mask, mime, puppets, circus. So not that many matrics tend to choose those, but both my staff members are Zulu speakers, and so they would be able to work within that. I also do have contacts, obviously, because of our work in Kwakwa, with people who I could highly recommend to work in Sutu. So certainly in that Free State area, Harry Smith around that area, I have artists who are up there and available.
Yeah.
And looking for work, obviously.
Yeah.
Hello, it's Lalu.
Yes.
I'm wondering about an opportunity. So, for example, Drama for Life as an institution of higher learning was mentioned. The University of the Free State, possibly Stellenbosch, Rhodes. I'm just thinking about these respective universities. If this could actually be one opportunities for us in the arts sector to see how this project that we are, like this movement, the support that we're offering could be also be done in such a way that it becomes some kind of an evidence-based initiative to show the impactful and meaningful role that the arts can play towards teaching and learning, so that it's not just about fun and entertainment, but we can actually prove. So work together perhaps with some researchers in some universities to help us craft this as a way to prove that. Could that be a possibility at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely it would be. I think though we are, the time frames are short. We're in July and we've got matrics we don't know when they're going to be doing their exams, but they should have been doing their exams in sort of October. They probably will do them a bit later, but even so, they are, so there's a short time frame that we need to work in order to be able to support this year's matrics to be able to do their exams, and putting in place all the research protocols and things. It may need to be more after the fact, but I think that if we keep that in mind, we could certainly track it. I just want to pick up from the chat that Gerard has said that Outreach Foundation would be happy to volunteer and support 2 facilitators, and himself would be able to offer time, which is fantastic. And Eric has also mentioned that she'd be interested in engaging with any support to grade 12 learners, because the need is not only creative, but also emotional. So thank you, Erica. That's also really fantastic. I think that'd be really helpful. Mandisi, you got your hand up?
Hi, it's actually Tanya. Mandisi and I are together on this meeting. I'm a speech and drama teacher based in Durban, and with the beginning of lockdown, I have started teaching online. So I can help virtually if help is needed, speech and drama wise. Yes, so that also with the studio that I was working with, I lost many students, so I've got time.
Fantastic. Well, that's
okay,
brilliant.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
I can.
Did you say Tanya or Tracy?
Tanya, Tanya. I can send you my details through. Don't worry about it. I'll send you my details. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tanya. That's really fantastic. Annie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just referring back to an email that I received sometime last week from Catherine Gibbons, who is the head of the FET Performing Arts in Gauteng in the education department. And I don't know if this applies for all provinces. It might just be Gauteng, but it seems that they've taken the decision to do all dramatic arts exams via film. She says the other challenge is that we require all the exams to be filmed and the markers are going to mark the videos. So I'm not sure if that then changes. I mean, we'd still need to coach the learners, but I wonder if that slightly changes, you know, maybe there needs to be more assistance with devices, or more assistance with schools, or more assistance with, you know, those kind of more technical aspects. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I need to find out whether Western Cape is going the same route, and also how they're going to support those schools where, you know, it's really hard for people to get access to devices. So yeah, it's good to know. Anybody else want to speak on this FET dramatic arts thread? I did get an email also from Menzi Mkwane, who has been making short videos for sharing with teachers or sharing with learners around different aspects of the curriculum. And he was very happy to share those on the Theatre for Youth platform as well. But I'm not certain what they cover. I don't know if they are aimed at grade 12, because I haven't seen them yet, or if they're more general. But it's, you know, it seems like we do have potentially a lot of people in different places and a lot of potential resources that could be of use. And it's really just a case of how do we organize all of this, and you know, make sure that we can utilize these people's energy and time to give kids the support that they obviously need right now. Okay, so if there isn't anything specifically on the FET support, or not FET, but matric support particularly, then I think it would be useful for us to maybe think also about the more sort of integrated arts that happen lower down. So in terms of creative arts at intermediate phase and at senior phase. And I think the reality at this stage is that, you know, I'm not sure how much focus there's going to be on those art forms in whatever curriculum the children are expected to complete this year. I did note that in the amended and restricted kind of curriculum that they sent out for CAPS and for senior phase, they did have creative arts you know, topics and particular tasks that they were expecting learners to engage with. At the intermediate phase level, it's unclear. I haven't had anything from I haven't seen anything from the department that has spoken to this. Does anybody have any more information on intermediate or senior phase specifically? Ali, did you want to say something?
Sorry, it's not really related to intermediate or senior phase. But I wanted to mention just very briefly the Drama for Life conference, which is going to be taking place in August, which is a partnership with ASSITEJ South Africa. And the idea is that we are really addressing what happens now. So how do we create theatre during COVID-19? How do we come together? How do we remain in contact with our audiences? How do we think of the arts as being a healing place? And unfortunately, applications are due today for proposals. I'll share the call in the chat. But what we have seen is a lot of really interesting applications which support the making of theatre in interesting ways. And what we are going to ensure we do is that at the conference and festival, we will have open workshops which invite theatre makers to come into a workshop which says, you know, here's how to create your show over Zoom, or here's an opportunity to enhance your teaching skills in Google Classroom for your grade 5s. So I just wanted to flag it as we were thinking about these things, because it's not only a very kind of academic conference, but also a practical one, and one where we're also trying to play. We're trying to say, how do we connect? Let's also try and create some experiments through the conference. So I'll share the call, and if people are interested or have questions, they can contact me.
Okay, great. Is there anybody, just going back to what I was asking before Addie did that intervention, Addie, won't you put on the chat the general link to the call?
Yeah, I'll do that now.
So is there anyone who would like to speak to the intermediate or senior phase creative arts? I mean, I think that one of the tricky things at this time is just having a look at the curriculum, and this is something which we are having to do for Kickstarter, and working out what is COVID practical and what not, and so much of our work has been in a sense compromised by the COVID environment. So for example, we have a lot of focus on using pipes, one person, one note pipes, which are essentially little bits of rubber tubing, which are very, cheap and easy to produce. And if you cut them to the right lengths, you get the right notes and you're able to play the scales that the creative arts requires. But of course, under COVID, working with pipes and sharing pipes and, blowing into pipes and all of that becomes incredibly impractical. So it would also be interesting to think through if we have, as an arts community, if we've got suggestions around how to either adapt teaching for a COVID environment, or if we've got ideas for adaptations to the curriculum that could be useful. So I don't know if anyone has anything to offer on that particular point.
We've been working a lot with educators directly to try and change their methods of teaching, and doing a lot of work where we're linking physical movement to words in order to make things easier to remember. So it assists the kind of static learner more than anything else. As far as the curriculum is concerned, we're working mainly in that intermediate phase, and we still haven't received exactly what is to be covered, and I don't think most of the schools have either. I think, as you say, the education department is having so much thrown at them at the moment, and that they are really trying just to get the matrics through. I mean, even the return of grade 6 and grade 7s, nobody seems to really know what their curriculum is covering at the moment. Yeah. So we're trying to investigate that. Maybe I'll do some more digging into that, and hopefully I'll have something to be able to pass on at the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Peter. And I think that also perhaps if we could look at gathering, in the same way that we're gathering these resources that might be useful on the Theatre for Youth site, perhaps we could be actively gathering, approaches to a COVID environment, adaptations, etc. Maybe that needs to become a particular area on our resources. And then anybody who has anything which they feel is valuable and could be useful in that environment could add it there, I also think that we could potentially be looking at the creation of a kind of a manual for teachers teaching the arts under COVID. So from an artistic, experience point of view, what are some of the things that we as artists can recommend? And maybe that's something that ASSITEJ can start to work on in the light of our Kickstarter work, because we need to do it anyway. And if we made that document open to anybody within the group who would like to contribute to it, you could also be involved in the writing of that document and the shaping of that document. And that might be something which we could then give to teachers as a useful tool. So I think that the situation is not going to be resolved anytime soon, and people are going to be needing to look for longer term solutions. Does that sound like a good idea? Is that something people would be interested in? Maybe if you are interested, you want to just put your hand up. If you click on your name, you can put your hand up there, or you can use the reactions button. You can give a thumbs up like I'm trying to do now. You can also, you'll see under the participants list, you've got ticks and no's and things. So if you'd like to respond with any one of those, feel free. We have such a variety of possible responses on Zoom. Oh, fantastic, Janet. Thank you so much. That would be brilliant. So Janet has just said in the chat that she's happy to help with the compilation and editing of that document. Yay, 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 yay. Fantastic. Okay, then if people are happy for us to proceed on that basis, that we're going to start to create this document and ask for contributions to it, then what I'd like to turn to next is content creation. I mean, that's one form of content, is a manual for teachers, but we are also looking at a project which we will do in collaboration with a new foundation, which I'm a part of, called STAND. STAND stands for Sustaining Theatre and Dance Foundation. And essentially, it's a foundation that has grown out of the needs of the industry right now, and identifying theatre and dance as being particularly vulnerable at this time, and looking for ways that we can work to find patrons from within the industry and from supporters of the industry, also to find projects that we can partner with that will be useful to both sustaining theatre and dance practitioners by giving them a little bit of income, but also by sort of continuing to generate meaningful content and engagement and audiences and funding for the arts. And so what we are looking at is the development of materials around set works. Now, this again speaks to the matrics in particular, but in an ideal world, I would love to see this material filter all the way down, because I feel like very often, even in a pre-COVID environment, Artscape, for example, would every year put on the Isikhosa set work, but it would be the same matric set work that is the matric set work. The same production would essentially be, rehashed year after year after year, and only the matrics would ever see a production, and you shouldn't have to wait your whole school career before seeing a production that is related to your set work. And there are other set works which are equally valuable all the way down through the, through the curriculum. So the idea is, at this point, given resources and other limitations, we're not going to go for full productions, but we will go for audio readings, readings of set poetry in all the official languages, readings of extracts from dramatic works, so that we create almost like a highlights package of the set work. So let's say, for argument's sake, the set work is Macbeth. We don't do the whole of Macbeth, but we do some of the sort of crucial moments and scenes through the play, and those are read. And then there's maybe, there could be some mediation around that that happens, some sort of either text or activities that could be useful, so that it brings the work to life for learners. So we are going to be launching this project with Stan Foundation and with Voortfees, and we're looking at all the official languages. And so yes, if there's interest in this particular project, we'd love to hear from you. Also, what we are really interested to know about is if you are already creating content along these lines. So we're aware of the Baxter Theatre having launched just at the time that COVID hit and the theatre closed, their Baxter Radio project, which was essentially designed to create a whole lot of work, some of which was related to set works. Unfortunately, they haven't managed to get funding for their project either, so I think that it hasn't gone as far as they had hoped, but some content has been created. So obviously, we don't want to have the situation which was the reason that Theatre for Youth was created in the first place. It started when ASSITEJ was trying to assist theatre companies about 10 years ago with touring their productions to schools. And we heard about problems like one theatre company having a production of Warza Albert and phoning up a school and saying, we've got a production of Warza Albert, we'd like to come to your school. And the school saying, but we had your production of Warza Albert last week. And then an argument would ensue with the receptionist or whoever it was. And it would then be discovered that, in fact, there was another company that was also doing a production of Warza Albert. And that instead of these theatre companies having negotiated between themselves as to who was doing what set work, there were 3 sometimes productions of the same, the same text, and nothing of the other texts that needed to be seen. And so Theatre for Youth came out of that need for theatre companies to try and just know what was happening, know what one another was doing, have some mechanism for seeing what was available in other parts of the country. So what we'd be looking at doing is not wanting to replicate any of the texts that have already been created in one shape or another online and that kids already have access to, but rather trying to create the works that have been neglected for whatever reason, and to ensure that those are the ones that are prioritized. So if anyone has any updates about either the work that they have been doing in terms of the creation of any kind of online resource related to a set work, or is aware of anybody else having created such content, please let us know. And if you're interested in being part of this particular project, also please let us know. So if you can put your hand up now or indicate with a yes or whatever. Matlali Action Productions, I'm seeing you. Do you want to be sharing your screen? Do you want to say something? Matlali Action Productions. Long number. I think it is Matlali Pule Plume. Do you want to unmute yourself? We can't hear you at the moment. You need to unmute yourself. You go down to the bottom left corner and make sure that your mic is on, not off, not red. There we go. Yep. Hi, did you want to say something? Hi, did you want to say something? No? Oh, it disappeared. Okay, Lalu, you've got your hand up?
Yes, please. I just wanted to encourage all of us that this can be a very great opportunity for developing the various methodologies and the various resources into other languages that are not necessarily English. So if there could be people that also maybe need translations, because I think it's not just about translating the words, it's also about engaging with concepts.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that the text works, the set works that I'm considering, though, they are written in the original languages. They're first language works, So it's not necessarily about the translation at this point. I mean, in the short term, what we're looking at is actually creating audio versions of the work that that is already, translated or was originally in Sesotho or Setswana or whatever. Margot, did you want to say something? Or you just
no.
All right. Okay, so is everybody clear about that one? It's always difficult with Zoom where everyone's so quiet and you sort of wonder, is anybody out there? Any questions about that? Are you all fine? We are here, great. I'm so glad to hear it. All right, thank you. So ASSITEJ team, can I check with you, is there any part of what we're doing and or we're wanting to engage our members in that I haven't yet mentioned? I haven't spoken at all about the cross arts work. I mean, one of the things that we spoke about in our last meeting was the fact that given that teachers are so stressed at this time and that the arts can be used as a fabulous learning tool for other subjects, we might be able to support other learning subjects through the arts. I mean, in a similar way to what I've just been saying about the set works, because the set works are generally speaking the first language set works that we're referring to. So, you know, so we can use the arts for the set works, of course, for languages, but we can also use the arts for maths and science and for other subjects. And we were thinking that that this is also something that we could gather in the Theatre for Youth website space, so that if people were interested in accessing the existing resources, you know, that are out there, they would be able to do it through Theatre for Youth. It's a kind of a one-stop shop. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that at all, to arts across the curriculum? Does anybody have access to particular resources that they feel would be worth sharing at this time? That would be really helpful. Or anything you'd like us to know about?
Yvette, I think this is possibly also where some of our facilitators and people working in schools can be valuable. Because I think definitely, and this is definitely for an intermediate phase and into FET, is that I think the arts can give some, not all of, but some of the, you know, stress relief and psycho support which is necessary just by the nature of what they do, of getting children to breathe, of getting them to move. And I think that's something we should also be considering, is that at this time, imagining the overwhelm in some schools, that it might just be helpful for the teacher to be able to have that support, that, you know, a facilitator can then work with 20 learners while the teacher is trying to catch something up. I mean, I don't really know if that's possible, but I think it's something we should be thinking about going forward.
Great. Francis, you've got your hand up.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to add on that point, just because the work that I'm doing at the moment is very much aspiring towards making a contribution to that, basically, like using the arts as a kind of toolbox to support learning, you know, across different subjects. So it's not something that I have, it's new, something that I'm kind of doing on my own, independently, on my own steam, but I would definitely be interested in sharing, you know, notes and having, you know, additional conversations about that, basically, just in terms of also offering teacher support, support directly to educators, not just in terms of, you know, providing exercises, but also potentially providing listening spaces, and also then maybe sharing insights within a network of educators. So there's a lot of, basically I have a lot of ideas, and the progress with what I'm doing at present, which is working with a group of grade 10 and 11 English first additional language learners. It's super slow. We're doing stuff on WhatsApp. And it's incredibly difficult to do things over virtual platforms and to do facilitation with people that you haven't met straight up off the bat on a platform like WhatsApp. But I'm learning a lot, and I'm very interested to share those learnings as it goes. So I just wanted to kind of jump in there and say hi to anybody who's interested in this theme. I'm very interested to connect on many different points relative to that.
What I'm also wondering, Francis, is whether, I mean, it's something which is coming out of the I'm for the Arts Education working group as well, is the need for kind of sharing spaces where we can share some methodologies and approaches and practices, and almost like sort of more intensive workshops that can dig a little bit deeper into some of these areas. And maybe we could look at putting something together that, you could be involved in, and maybe one or two other people. But it feels like, it's something that is really needed right now.
Yeah, I would be very interested in setting something like that up, and like just putting my energy towards that. I think it's definitely recognize the need across here with what's being spoken about, and also what we've been speaking about with for the arts.
Great, thank you. Nna?
Thanks for that. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I was looking at how most of the arts people are afraid of going across all the other subjects, because mostly artists, they think we want to teach mathematics using the arts. But I think the concept is all about how do you use arts as a methodology to dig up concepts, to work around different subjects within the whole curriculum, and going like, all right, this is what we have in mathematics, and what can I use as an arts methodology to tackle maybe fractions, to tackle so and so, So I think most people they think that we are using arts to actually teach the actual stuff that's in there, but it's more of us making the learners understand a concept using the arts, not really, because sometimes we had a conversation with Banele, who said she doesn't know much about the subjects that she teaches, but she uses, when she looks at the CAPS document, maybe social sciences, and she goes like, what is in the social sciences that I can relate to, when I go back to performance, when I go back to dance, when I go back, and make that an experience for the learner to understand the concept of a certain subject, So it's just that point of how do we come in and make them experience a certain, something that they are learning about.
Absolutely, and I think that, really for me, what the arts do so well is they provoke curiosity. And one of the biggest stumbling blocks for learning is, a lack of curiosity, because for whatever reason, the subject has been, it's either intimidating, or the concept is foreign, or it doesn't seem to apply to me, or whatever it is, And so if the arts can provide a way in that is playful and engaged and whatever, then it can open up something for learners. It doesn't need to be the whole answer, but it can be the way in, which can be really, really useful. I'm just noticing in the chat, for those of you who maybe aren't looking at your chat, that Margot is saying that she's presenting an arts integration course online in August, and she's got the email there and her Northern Academy of Dramatic Arts website that you can have a look at. And Glenn is also talking about his online course to cover African percussion rudiments. He's speaking about the different modules that he has, and that he's really passionate about cross-curricular education, and that you can contact him through those contact details that he just put on the site. So yeah, please feel feel free to do that, but also maybe we'll have time at the end to have a little bit of sharing about things. But Annette, I see your hand up, and then Mandisi, and then Tandiwe. Yeah, Annette. Annette, you must unmute yourself.
Hello. Hi. I'm a visual arts person. I'm not a theatre person, but I'm dead anxious about education. So I just noticed that Laura Waterston was at the meeting, but she's left. And then also Janet Lindley. I think Janet and I worked together at the Coast Common Trust. I'm not too sure about that.
Yes, you would have.
But in actual fact, there's a resource there, and I've never met such passionate people who want to be qualified as educators. And I sort of feel that there are resources there. The Mbali Art Education has done a pilot there, and there is a music academy there, and the crafters are there, and storytelling is the basis of all those tapestries that have been going out all over the world. And I can't help feeling that, in actual fact, with all these talents that are coming through that people are talking about, somehow something should be set up in Hamburg now, which is like a hub, where all these things can be just brought there. And the main cultural center has now become a bed and breakfast, but I'm sure there's still plenty of space for rehearsals and performances, and inviting visitors for events there. But just to get something into that area where there's actually nothing, that whole Mushwa district has got nothing. So I just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure Janet will be able to speak to that a lot more strongly than me, although I'm aware of some of the issues there. But I don't know, Janet, if you want to say anything about.
Yeah, there are amazing opportunities there. The problem at the moment is that they're struggling quite badly with COVID cases rising. So a lot of the work of the Music Academy and the art project has had to stop because they have had a few of their close people have died recently. So yes, it's going to be hard to really start something up there now, but it is definitely an area to be kept at the top of your mind when thinking about moving into a future, and not to forget them now and include them in things in some way. But it'll be hard to create a hub there now because of the situation.
Modulefa was meant to be part of our webinar on Wednesday for artists and mental health because of the work that he does, obviously, in terms of visual arts, therapy, etc. But unfortunately, Hamburg had a blackout at that point, so he was not able to join us, which was a great pity. Tandiwe, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Yvette, and thank you, everyone. Yes, Yvette, I don't know how much of this conversation I have. Sorry, I was just closing my door. I don't know how much of this conversation I've missed out on, but I think I'm torn between two things right now. I think what has happened to us as artists right now is an opportunity for us to deliberate ways in which we can make our art more sustainable and relevant, because I think we've been focused so much on creating performers, so much that we have not looked at the opportunities perhaps of thinking about the arts in terms of what skills can be learned and how these skills can be transferred in sort of lifelong learning kind of thing. And I think that is what I think as arts educators should maybe also centralize in terms of creating our own content, is how do artists create their own work that can stand alone without always becoming support for teachers. And that being said, I'm guilty of doing that work where I'm always supporting teachers. because at the moment I'm working with early childhood centers, and when they opened, I offered workshops for children and creating songs about, you know, wash your hands, just creating a job for myself, you know, going into these centers and I'm teaching them songs about the protocols in response to COVID. But what I'm also doing, which is more sustainable, is that I've got research projects within these ECD centers where children are seen as researchers, and they go and set up a research project about their school. The one school is talking to ecosystems. Now, obviously, I'm coming from a science background, but what they're doing is that they're using multiple languages to discuss issues about these ecologies that exist within the schools. So we've got children that write stories, we've got children that perform these stories, we've got children that dance, that create music about their stories. So I think that is also an opportunity where we think about the actual content that artists can just create so that our lives are more sustainable.
Yeah, thanks Thandiwe. I mean, do you see potential for collaboration in what you're doing at the moment? You know,
yes,
would you be looking for collaborators, or would you, and with the Theatre for Youth, I'm not sure if you were here when we were looking at the Theatre for Youth website and talking about Theatre for Youth as a kind of a uniting kind of space that can potentially connect schools and artists, etc. But, you know, would something like that be of assistance to you?
I think definitely, because I'm collaborating with 5 other ladies. I mean, I was lucky, I think I may have mentioned this to you. I got a relief from Nedbank, which has kept me busy in the past 2 months. Yeah. And we have these ladies that are creating this content for the various age groups, but within preschool and the foundation phase, because that is where my PhD actually, my PhD centered around that age. But it certainly can be an opportunity for us to engage. I mean, I've done loads of work in grade 10, 11, and 12, having been a teacher in those spaces. One of the other things that I do is that I tutor. So I do group tutoring for grade 10s, 11s, and 12s in science and mathematics. So I use tools of drama, I use tools of music, tools in dance to disseminate some of these concepts. So I'll be very much open into, talking to collaborations and seeing who else is doing similar work.
And how are you at the moment marketing yourself to students? So
I suppose one advantage is that I was a teacher, so it's sort of, you know, people know where to find me. But I work mainly in private schools, which is a PT. So those are the students that are getting access to the kind of services that I'm offering. Like I said, it has been difficult to sustain ourselves, and so you sort of try and see how best to.
Yeah, I mean, that's precisely the kind of thing that we're wanting to put onto the Theatre for Youth website. Both, you know, so we were talking earlier about needing to find ways to find the paying students, but then also cross-subsidizing or finding some support so that we're able to extend this service to children who wouldn't be able to pay, you know, and to the kids who are really struggling right now. But I think that, you know, it's also the other thing is that if we are aware of what resources we have, we're able to put in stronger proposals. You know what I mean? And there's more opportunity to potentially get funding for these kinds of initiatives. So maybe it would be a good idea for us to just talk about, you know, what you'd like to put on the Theatre for Youth site, and, you know, we can sort of see what you're offering and then work out how to package all of that. And maybe also for you to be involved in some of the workshops we were talking about around methodologies. That would be also really useful for you to be giving a workshop to others who might be interested in doing similar kind of work. Wow, fantastic. Thanks, Thandiwe. Mandisi, I see your hands up. I'm not sure if it's Mandisi or Tanya, but whoever it is, go ahead.
No, okay, this time around it's me, it's Mandisi.
Hi, Mandisi.
Being when I was there, when ASSITEJ was holding Kickstart facilitators workshop in Joburg, I was there because I come from a background of theater and facilitating with learners. So when I moved to Durban, I got to use my skills into working into coding, creativity and imagination. Basically, we're using a free software called Scratch. Now, this free software makes you do so many creativity and imagination. Basically, you can tell stories. You can make animations which can tell stories, and it's a free software. It's easy to use, and children for last year we were working with one of the schools here in Durban, which is based in Chesterfield, and we find out that most of the kids are interested in coding, and also they see now, as for me as a facilitator now, I'm using my drama skills, I'm using my creativity, I'm using my artist skills to teach them about coding, coding and how to imagine stories and how to basically use their stories to tell basically about where they're from, what they like, what they don't like, what they want to be like, the people who they look up to, and all of this. And also we want to create content which is also based which is also like South African style, where everything should be South African, everything should represent ourselves, and we want learners to engage in so many activities. Now, for myself, being an artist and also doing this kind of work now, I'm seeing a change where theater might be on hold now, but we want the youth, or we want the kids to engage in certain activities which they will also enjoy, and which also will give them freedom to be themselves and also to imagine whatever they want to imagine and to create also. So basically they can be visual artists, because with using this software, they can do maths, they can do science, they can be artists, because now they can make stories, they can create their own stories. They can make music in this software. They can draw in this software. There's so much which is there in this software that it's free, and also it's available for everyone to download. And it could be something that kids also could work at home in their own comfort zone. But we also hit a brick wall, because we also had to provide laptops, computers, but we've also found another cheap way, which is there are the small computers which are called Raspberry Pis, and those Raspberry Pis are very easy, are very cheap, and they can do so much work for the education system for here in South Africa. But we want to push this initiative that there's so much life into programs now, and also I think for artists to grow themselves also, they can see so much life which is happening with the fourth industrial revolution, if I can say that, and also they can engage in so much free software which not can only grow themselves, also can grow learners to be free thinkers, to be imaginative people, to be themselves basically. So for Codemakers also, we profiling scientists. We're doing this science education and technology thing where we profiling scientists, which we want kids to get to be involved in science, where they can name scientists. Basically, when you ask kids this side, when we take our stuff to schools, we ask kids to name one scientist. Obviously, they name Albert Einstein. But what about the African scientists? What about what about South African artists? What about African scientists? What about these people who are actually here in our continent and are making a difference?
Yeah.
And we want not only this content to be, we want this content to be South African style, basically. And also artists can be themselves. They don't have to pretend to, because now when it comes to theater, there's so many things. There's Macbeth, so now we want to take those skills and make them South African, and make sure that every content that we have is strictly South African, and it's also from South Africa. And we are very imaginative people. For me, I'm very imaginative people, and I would like to use this tool. This is just a free software which kids can use in their comfort zone. I'm sure parents have laptops which they work in. Now it's time for parents to give the kids an opportunity to use their laptops for something which can help develop their learning abilities, and it can also upgrade their creativity and their imagination. Yeah, what can I say more? There's so much more going on in my head right now, and I want to say it all out. But I think also for us as artists, we need to accept this virtual world that is happening now. But we need to find ways into making content which can work for this virtual world. Basically, if you are a facilitator also, you can facilitate your class in a video. You know that you don't have your learners there, but basically you need to have that energy which can make the learners wake up. So we can facilitate in a video which can be played in a projector or something, where learners can be sent in a video which can circulate to the learners basically, and now they have their teacher, because all kids have cell phones and all this technological stuff. Now it's time to also focus into that, so that we can use, there's so many things that you can. It's easy to make apps, it's easy to make all these things, but we just need to find a way to come together and also focus on it, so that we can move away from this cloud that is blocking the artists to move, until now it's time for them to shift, basically, to bring in ways also for them to be creative. Now it's that platform for them to be creative, find ways into moving forward from this cloud.
Thanks so much, Mandisi. I mean, it's really inspiring, the work that you guys are doing, and I've been showing people the websites and the Facebook page, and I put the links into the chat so people can have a look there. And I really do encourage you to check out what Codemakers and are doing. And I think that we must absolutely ensure that it's all part of this mix that we're talking about. And we still have a meeting that we need to have, Mandisi. So we'll do that as soon as possible. I see, Michale, you've got, I'm not sure if you're asking us to go faster or if you'd like to say something, but we've got just 15
No,
minutes.
that was a mistake. I was exploring and then I made a.
No worries. We've got just 15 minutes left of the time that we had allocated for this meeting. So I just want to invite anybody who hasn't spoken, who's got something that they would like to share with us in terms of any of the, any projects, anything that you think might add to this conversation, anything that you'd like us to be thinking about, any way that you feel that you could contribute to any of one of the things that we've been discussing, please feel free now to share. Janet? Go for it, Janet.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say that I've had a lot of training in literature, and if any theatre group ever wanted help with the sort of discussion and analysis of the set works, I can help with that.
Brilliant, thank you. Anusia, I see that you're here and you haven't said anything at all this meeting, which is very unlike you. I wonder if you want to say something.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm actually a little bit under the weather, so I've just been spending a lot of time listening. I'm actually in bed listening to you guys. I'm loving the energy. It's my first meeting, so I'm usually someone who likes to feel the lay of the land before I start opening my big mouth. Obviously, my first urge when you asked, is there someone who wants to say anything? As usual, coming from dance background, I think we really need to start looking at. I'm not sure whether this is something for future meetings or something that I can throw in the pot right now. In terms of content, I think while we're in this lull time, it is such a valuable time for us to sit and maybe start re-looking at how we are going to do things, and not just online, not just in terms of the logistics of things, but in terms of how we want to come out of this as a South African society. And I think coming from dance, I can speak to that, and that is we need to start moving away from, I'm going to say this right now, because when I went to the I'm for the Arts session, the first session, I was under the impression that we were going to be talking about the dance industry. And when I sat there, I was the only dancer who was not a contemporary dancer. And that was quite shocking to me. And I find this all the time, and I can speak to this because I'm someone who's been very, very much spending my entire career about creating inclusivity, creating spaces and places for people who maybe are ashamed of their own cultures, or feel that in order to be a recognized dancer, they need to be a ballet dancer or a contemporary dancer. And I'm very happy to work with anyone who feels similarly, or who feels that they would like to have more input in terms of that kind of thing. I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means, but I definitely have like more than 35 years of experience in this area. So I guess I'm throwing my my skills into the pot if anybody is inclined to use them. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Anusia. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet who'd like to share anything related to what we've been talking about? Margot, I wonder whether you want to share, you spoke a little bit earlier about your cross, how did you put it? Interdisciplinary or cross arts or something, workshops. Do you want to just tell people a little bit more about that? Are you there, Margot? Okay, I'm not here, not seeing Margot. Maybe she's busy with something else at the moment. Okay, who's that? Francis, yeah. Francis?
Hi again. I was keeping my hand down initially because I'm not somebody who hasn't spoken yet. But I wanted to just I wanted to just jump in and just go back to what you mentioned earlier, Yvette, like that there's this sort of need that you're recognizing in terms of having maybe an additional kind of sharing session. Just because I think there's like two parts to that potentially. So I wanted to kind of clarify it, but also just say from my side, I would be very interested to know if there are, you had spoken about the sort of ASSITEJ educator network. And I don't know whether that's people that are present here, but if there are educators present who are interested in working with artists to kind of, you know, basically experiment with how the arts can support various, you know, learning inquiries, then it would be great to know who here is interested in that. And by the same token, any artists or arts practitioners, you know, creative practitioners that would want to be part of a further conversation about that too, you know, maybe just to have a really open-ended kind of sharing and listening session.
I think this particular grouping is largely the artists who are working, you know, in some they've got some connection to the educational space.
Yeah.
But we do have a connection, you know, we do have a links to a lot of teachers, and we've been a little bit hesitant about reaching out to them. We've been obviously reaching out to the teachers who are part of our Kickstarter program already, but we've been hesitant to reach out more widely until we were a little bit more certain about what it was that we were able to offer, because I think that people are just so overwhelmed right now that we didn't want to either make promises we couldn't keep or just irritate people, or do you know what I mean? Sort of take up space and time that they don't have space and time for. So we wanted to be a bit clearer. So, you know, I think that we're getting a bit clearer. I think we're clearer about the Theatre for Youth sort of hub as being the space which can offer a whole lot of different things. And I think that we've got some concrete suggestions coming out of this meeting now that we can also take forward and write up in a little bit more detail. We've also got these projects that people have been speaking about, like the 21 Acts of Goodness, Kindness, whatever it is, and Our Happy Place, etc., that we can start to offer. So I think now in the next weeks, it'll be about communicating with the teachers and saying, these are some of the things that we have to offer. Are these of interest? You know, and also and then we can open up for that kind of conversation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's anybody, I mean, the reason also why I think this is kind of coming in a little bit left field is just because I'm more in the visual arts side, but also more interested, I guess, in how the arts can provide, learning equipment. You know, I think very similar to what Mandisi was describing, and I think some others have spoken about it too. So I'm gonna put my, if it's okay, if I can just share my email address, and then if anybody's interested to talk more about that. Yeah, cool, great, thanks.
I mean, just to say that ASSITEJ, although our main focus is performing arts, we do work across all the art forms because of the Kickstarter program, where we're working, you know, with creative arts, which also includes visual arts. And so we have tried to build strong connections to organizations that do work in the visual arts, and, you know, sort of try and kind of marry our programs. We've worked with, for example, Zeitsmacher, and we've worked with Embody, and we've worked, you know, with a number of visual arts organizations. So yeah, there's no mismatch really. It's all, you know, part of the broader fabric.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. All right, we've got just 5 minutes left. If there is there anybody else who'd like to share anything at this point?
Purely just a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete. Will you, sorry, Frances was talking just now about leaving her contact information. Will you supply contact information from this entire meeting to everyone, please?
Sure. Yeah, we will. We'll make that part of the minutes. So we'll send everybody
Wonderful.
minutes with people's contact information.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then Mkhululi and BC, you've also been very quiet. I'm not sure how your connection is. Maybe you want to say a little bit about what you're doing in Kimberley, because, you know, it's so great to have Kimberley in the conversation.
Hey guys. Hi, this is BC. Can you have me? Yeah, okay. I want to be seen.
He wants to be seen. He's the diva, yeah.
Of course. So, my name is Mona BC. They call me BC, and this is Mkhululi, my partner at Amandla Danca Teatro. We are based in Galeshewe, which is a township in Kimberley, and we are co-running musical theatre academy, whereby we work with kids from age 5. The youngest one is age 4, and the oldest one will be age 20-something.
Yeah.
We are an after-school program, so whereby we help kids to rethink differently and learn different cultures from around the whole of the continent, and again, South America, Brazil. But this way, we actually get inspiration from some of our Partners.
So back to the work of the forum. Yvette, DC and I have been talking a lot while listening to you guys speak, you know, and our main concern is that how do we really get all this information across to kids in the townships, you know? So we were just brainstorming ideas in terms of like maybe DVDs, you know, not all kids have access to data and so forth. If maybe, you know, all these kind of things, but we just got to digest all this information and maybe try to make it easier for us because our kids just work on another spectrum completely, you know, unlike their parents don't have data and how do they get, so it's challenging, but I feel like just us knowing everything and knowing everybody and know what's happening, we can kind of funnel it down to something that we can kind of figure out how we're going to get all this information across.
Well, I think it would be really helpful if you could think about that and give us some ideas, because obviously your situation is not exactly unique. It's kind of the majority context, you know.
Yeah.
So, and we've also been thinking about, like, would it be helpful to put data on like a data card for teachers to have, or, you know, I mean, like what should we be asking for? You know, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to make, at the moment what we've been doing is, you know, with Kickstarter is making these short videos which can be sent by WhatsApp. Great, but you know, you can only do a certain amount within a certain time frame before it becomes a very heavy video, you know, and people can't necessarily use it. So what else can we do, you know? And is audio better in some instances? What can we do on audio? You know, how creative can we get with just audio, which, you know, which might be a bit lighter in terms of data, or in terms of distribution, etc.
Yeah, because I think maybe with us, you know, things that, what's that? Sorry, Viv?
No, I was just saying any creative thinking around that would be really helpful.
Yeah, because with us, we got a whole orchestra with our kids, you know. So maybe like Amandla could maybe in essence be the soundtrack of these things, you know. We could assist musically, you know, to just contribute somehow to whatever we decide on at the end of the day, like we've got an orchestra to our disposal. So that's how we can come in maybe at the end of it, if it's going to be on a podcast or audio thing we can forward via WhatsApp or whatever, you know. It's just Yay.
Okay. That's brilliant. That's really fantastic.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. Well, so my plea to everybody, we've got 1 minute left and I want to respect your time. So what I would like to say, my plea to everybody is, you know, you've heard some of our ideas. Hopefully these things are percolating for you. If you have ideas, please communicate with us. Please send us an email, please WhatsApp us or contact us in whatever way, shape or form. We'll be sending you minutes of this meeting. We'll invite you to participate in whatever it is that we are initiating, and we've told you about some of the things that we're initiating and some of the things that we're involved with. And we really encourage you to be part of this network of artists and people engaged with children and young people who want to support them and want to support education in whatever ways we can in this particular moment. So thank you very much for being part of this conversation. Thank you for taking the time today, and look forward to meeting you again. We'll have a meeting probably in about 2 weeks' time for this group again, once we've drawn up some things. So thank you so much, and have a lovely day further. Bye for now.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Janet. See you soon. Bye.